So
Namaste, nerds, and welcome to another exciting Budget Pub Stompers video. I'm Navanad, the Budget Pub Stomper. Today I have a special guest on. We're going to be discussing Casual Commander, cEdh, and Budget Competitive Commander. So this is something not exactly new. I've done one of these before, but this is a friend of mine from I would go as far as probably to say a pillar of the local Livonia, Michigan, kind of Detroit, Michigan Commander. I don't know, community. His name is Ryan, and Ryan, actually, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
sure. So my name is Ryan Sparks. My roots of the game go back to 2003 with 8th edition. I think I was about 8th grade at the time. I was a religious Yu-Gi-Oh player. My friend's stepdad, Tom, who since passed away, who became many things to me, besides he was my first boss, ghost hunting, traveling, apprentice. I call him almost my Magic the Gathering sensei. He built a lot of decks with me, my first deck being elves, going infinite and doing that fireball damage was always fun, sitting at the kitchen table. I stopped the game about 08. I started a band. It actually did really well. We hit radio stations all as far as the UK and Ireland, and we hit #1, and we went to Detroit, Grammys and get People's Choice, and we ended up disbanding, and things were getting pretty huge for us. We were about to work with movies, putting our songs in movies and stuff, and I'll be honest with you, it was a really sad time in my life. It almost put me in a suicidal depression stage, and EDH came about, and it really saved my life. Buddy of mine that actually you've met, Donovan here, Navanad. Yeah, Navanad.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine, Tom, introduced us back in, Tony, Tony.
Yeah.
He introduced us to the Commander format back in 2015, and I dabbled a little bit about it, and it was that Meren Plunder the Graves deck that really brought me back from the brink of existence, so it really reanimated me through Magic. I'm also known as the creator of the Jumanji EDH format that a lot of people have heard about, using Planes Chase and no commander damage and all that fun stuff. But yeah, you and I have been working a lot on my Meren decks and really pulling them from that brink of the casual side, to higher power and cEdh. So yeah, that's my little winded introduction there for you.
Yeah. So we're gonna circle back to a lot of that. There's tons of stuff. There's things that I just learned, things I already knew, and there's some things that I want to put like a little flagpole in, like the ghost hunting, if we have time to talk about. I know about it, but I haven't really talked to you about it. But as far as Commander goes, and I just want to tell the audience here, one of the reasons that I wanted to have Ryan on is because he's been very much a casual Magic player, like a casual Commander player, even to the degree that he did something that I have been thinking that casual players ought to have done for a long time. He sort of formalized a system of rules for casual Commander. That's what he's calling Jumanji, where it's basically a kind of an attempt to get everybody on the same power level while keeping kind of the type of Commander games that we all sort of signed on for. But we'll probably get back to the Jumanji thing. But I wanted to ask you about your involvement in the local community. I know you've had some involvement with the show. I can't think of the name of the show, but the
Legendary Showdown.
What is it?
Legendary Showdown.
There you go. Yeah, so tell me about Legendary Showdown, RIW, what's been going on. Tell me about your involvement in the local community here.
Sure. So, aside from being a resident deck builder like you for all my friends, I was getting asked weekly, most recently, seems like it slowed down a little bit because I've got a lot of people brewing, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the past at RAW Hobbies in Livonia running that Commander podcast, and it was all about kitchen table Magic with former Magic Pro Brian DeMars. We did a lot of streaming, when Pioneer first came back about after COVID. I wrote several articles, Commander articles for RAW, and they can be found a lot online, right? And I know you've read some of them. I spent a lot of time at... Thank you. I appreciate that. I spent a lot of time at All That Games in Livonia, helping the store owner with graphics and helping him run EDH leagues.
Yeah.
It's been a goal of mine. I like seeing the success of growth of people in the Commander community, just having fun playing EDH. It saved my life, and it's nice to kind of see people do things that aren't, they could be worse to what they're doing, right? It could be bad. It could be, it's finding their signature decks and play styles is what I like to bring out the best in people. I like seeing what they enjoy playing, that they could grow on and get better at. I've been trying to encourage people to play variants in a casual setting with EDH, whether it be Jumanji, Kingdom, which is kind of like Secret Werewolf, if you will. And obviously my love of Planes Chase, and then Emperor. Recently, it was really successful. I ran a 25-man league Jumanji format for EDH at Warriors 3 and Wayne in the last couple of years. And then I recently got another one, boom, pretty well, about 20 people at All That Games. And I even have friends of mine right now trying to brand a board game around Jumanji. It's kind of funny, actually. It's one of my good friends, Boom. He's trying to really design a board game for it, and it's funny. And then, just seeing Jumanji, sometimes it goes so long, some of the games, because the whole point of Jumanji is to try to increase the length of the game of Commander, almost turn it into Monopoly, if you will, because, a Monopoly game is never quick. And so, I'll tell you one time, my longest game with the Jumanji, throwing in the mix with Planes Chase, Emperor, Kingdom, was about 8 hours, and I'll tell you that I just wanted to say that to hear you cringe, but
yeah, God, gross.
But I'm a huge advocate for also Pauper Commander. I'm friends with a lot of people in the community. I was actually invited to play at a tournament for them today, ironically, a Pauper Commander for a cause tournament they had, and I'm constantly helping them with some content, joining in their chats and stuff. So it's been a lot of fun kind of building up over the years, going from someone who was ready to jump off the ledge to really seeing a lot of people turn around with the EDH format and getting a lot of friends from it. So
yeah, it's all about the gathering, right? So there's a lot to unpack there. So yeah, those guys in the Pauper community, great group of guys. I love to argue with them. That's like one of my favorite things. It's one of my guilty pleasures, just to get on their channels and just start poke little fights with them, about Dark Ritual. Like, a lot of the guys are like, Dark Ritual is not a good card, and you don't play Lotus Petal and all this. And I'm like, yeah, no, if you could play literal Black Lotus, would you or would you not? Is that a bad card to you? Just kind of messing with them a little bit. But
oh yeah.
But I guess it's probably almost a redundant question at this point, but I definitely got to ask. So I know the answer to this already, but I think it's something we should get. I mean, it's important to the direction that our conversation is going to be going. What is your favorite deck, and I mean your favorite casual deck and your favorite cEdh deck so far, and what's your favorite deck at budget competitive? And for anybody who doesn't know, when I'm talking about budget competitive, I'm talking about 100 max, not C. Well, I guess it depends on how you define cEdh decks, but the most powerful decks we can build sub $100, that's a budget competitive deck. So what's your favorite deck for casual, cEdh, and budget comp?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I have about 7 decks in rotation right now.
Yeah.
I have a binder, or not a binder, but I'll say a box in my backpack that I constantly have on me at all times, and I find myself going to these decks, and it's going to be my Meren high power casual deck, my Meren cEdh that you and I have spent a lot of time on together. My Sakashima copy deck, that's just a solid deck. I don't even know where to put it. The owner of ATG wants to put it towards a higher powered level, but I just don't think it's there, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's a partner with Sakashima and Eyesore, the owl. I gotta love my Chatterfang as a tribute to my buddy that passed away. One of his favorite decks and his signature decks was Squirrels, so that's been a big thing with me, and especially the Golgari, with Chatterfang.
Yeah.
Get shot dinos just because sometimes I just like punch face and go stompy on people. I got Negan Treasures, which is kind of a higher powered deck, but it's more of a board control, I'd say casual deck. And then obviously I think the deck that we're here to talk about today, which would probably be the Grist budget cEdh, would be probably my favorite budget deck.
Yeah, you know what I got to say, Ryan? I've played with, helped built, and tinkered around on just myriad budget decks. I've been building $100 and $150 decks for years now. And that's actually not just one of your favorite decks. It's one of my favorite decks, too. I think it's really, really cool. And I know that we put a lot of, work and kind of love into it. And it's, it's blowing me away just how good it is. And I think anybody who hasn't played explicitly budget competitive against like actual players that, I don't want to sound conceited, but kind of who know what they're doing, like players that could play at a cEdh level, and have them, if you haven't played against that type of player, I think you'd be absolutely shocked at just how consistent and fast a proactive $100 deck can be. And I think that Grist is one of the epitomes of that kind of subspecies of commander decks, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I guess so. It sounds like there's if there's an underlying thread there, it seems like it's Golgari. Is that kind of the color combo of choice?
That's my Golgari heart right there. It saved my life. It's been my it's probably been the decks that I've had the most reps in, that I feel the most comfortable just sitting there and gold fishing. When I build a Golgari deck, I know the key pieces that I need to put out there. Dark Ritual, especially when you were talking about Dark Ritual, that's one of my go-to cards. So, I mean, in any black deck, I tried it.
What about in Pauper?
Dark Ritual goes in my every black deck that I have in Pauper.
Okay. Tell those sons of bitches.
Yeah. Just kidding. That's right. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I like Lotus Petal, but I like Dark Ritual more.
100%.
So.
Without a doubt. It's not close. Not close.
Exactly.
Casual versus competitive. So you're coming more from casual, but I want to tell everybody here, when I looked at your casual Meren deck, it's casual in a sense, right? Like it's casual in the sense that it wasn't a cEdh deck, but that's about it. Like, it's a combo deck, it's a grindy deck, it's a value-oriented deck, it had the tutors and fast mana, so I think a lot of people would not consider that I think it's a high-power deck. That's how I look at it. I think it's more of like a high-power deck. But casual versus competitive, what things do you like and dislike now that you've kind of tasted both sides of the aisle? What do you like and dislike about, say, brewing and playing in each of these spaces?
So, I come to go to all the LGSs. I work long hours during the week. I have to drive a distance to go play the games with my friends, including yourself, right? Yeah. So I like a long interactive game that has a lot of politics and interaction. It's nice to get those fast games. I don't really want to show up and play multiple games quickly. I want to enjoy everyone's company with me, and I want to try to play as many of those new cards I just bought. And I want to spend about 6 to 8 hours in a local game shop after spending a long week at work playing, even if I get like 2-3 games in. 3 to 4 in that time frame is awesome. I'm okay with three long games. So my casual has been always my go-to, right? So I'm kind of describing casual there because we're doing a lot of long hours there. I like venturing in the competitive space from time to time. I mean, more so lately with the budget and stuff. It's nice to get a handful of those games going off too. But sometimes, I got to really work for those games to have that interaction, right? Because I don't want that person to win right away. Sometimes I got to accept that person's going to win and just move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. But to be able to say, hey, I'm going to have to sit there and try to figure out a way to stop this person. Yeah. Sometimes I just don't want. I want that peace of mind where I'm going to play that longer game, and not have to worry about that right away in the first couple turns. Where I know. Sometimes it's not always like that in competitive, right? You and I had a game like that a couple of weeks ago where it was about 6, 7, 8 turns instead of 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, and the turns are long turns.
Yes, they're long turns, and sometimes I just don't want a long turns. Sometimes I just want to have multiple semi-short turns, and just because I just want to grind it out and get all my new cards out on the board and not have to worry about that person winning so quickly, and I have to find interaction or work with someone across from me. So I'll say I like brewing in a space where I know exactly what I'm getting into, right? If I'm getting into the casual, I'm not trying to jam as many combos as I can. I want to jam some mid-rangey stuff. I want to jam some lower power stuff to kind of go, why would you play that card? But that's kind of funny because it works, right? Mm-hmm. But, like Spore Frog, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of people, but you're not going to really play Spore Frog in a competitive game because there's not too much combat going on. So, it depends on your deck you're playing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's getting closer. It's getting closer. If ever there were a time for Spore Frog, it's now, but I don't think we're quite there.
No, not yet. But my buddy will show up one day because obviously being my favorite card. But
I mean, really,
I
truly,
think,
yeah, it could happen
for sure. And I think I'm liking the competitive space more and more. You really took me into that, and I appreciate that. Seeing the budget side, it's nice because it's kind of borderline casual. It's borderline cEdh. It's in the middle, and I think it's a really good place for a lot of people to start.
I think so too. I think it's my personal favorite way to play. I've been spending a little bit more time playing actual cEdh lately, just because I started ordering everybody those decks, and I think it's one of those things where if somebody plays their kind of complex pure cEdh deck once or twice and puts it away, they're going to come back to it in a month. They're not going to have any idea what it does. You really have to wrap your head around a cEdh deck. So I've been trying to kind of focus on that a little bit. But truly, I think I like the kind of $100 competitive. There's a lot less non-games. There's almost no turn 1 wins, virtually no turn 2 wins. Turn 3 is where it starts to get even feasible, but mostly we're talking about the first player to try to go off is turn 4, and it's usually you. When you're talking about you don't mind when some of these games go quick, or when they have to be stopped from winning the game right away. In my experience recently, the person that's got to be stopped from going off right away has been you. And the table's kind of had to gang up on you.
Right, no, and that's.
Did you?
I was just gonna say that's fine.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's fine with me. I mean, I've gotten enough reps in the deck to where people know, oh man, he knows his stuff. So
yeah.
I would go after myself too if I was in your shoes.
Yeah, I think it's nice the way you handle it. I feel like when you threaten a win on turn 3 or turn 4, and then it gets stopped, but the whole table has to collaborate, it seems to me like you're taking a little bit of joy, happiness just from having put us in that situation, knowing your deck did the thing and it had to be all hands on deck to stop it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I used to have a science teacher in high school that used to say, my job isn't to teach you, it's to make you think. So every time I get into that situation, I think of that line he used to say.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I wish I could remember kind of verbatim the one game we played where you were about to go off on turn 3 or 4 with your $100 deck, and I mean, we had to get I really had to put the thinking cap on. We had to use teamwork, and then we had to get damn lucky, and we just barely managed to. I don't remember. I got somehow somebody drew a card that they weren't naturally going to draw, and it had to be exactly this or that thing. And I mean, it's I like that. I like the when we have an obvious opponent who's about to win, and the rest of the whole table has to really put on their thinking caps. And people think about cEdh that it's not a political situation. There's no politics, and I think that's somewhere between wrong and just brain dead, right? So, did you have any ideas about cEdh? I'm sure you did, before actually coming into the more optimized, budget competitive, and just actual pure cEdh space. Did you have ideas about it, and did some of them turn out to be true? What has been true, false? What were your expectations, and how do they compare to your experiences so far?
So I will say, and I know we kind of touched on this in the past in person, I actually don't really enjoy, and I won't call all cEdh decks meta decks, but I will say a couple of weeks ago when Stella came out, I sat down at a table and 3 people were playing Stella, right?
Gross.
It's one of the reasons I was, it's a great deck, and I actually, when I kind of get into a habit where if the table's playing the same deck as me, I end up archiving that deck for a little bit, and that's kind of what I did with Stella. But I kind of quit Magic in the very beginning because I was tired of playing the same deck as people. I used to actually never play Meta and Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I played Yu-Gi-Oh!, for example. I would always brew my own stuff, and that's what I kind of do in Magic, right? And kind of what we're doing with Grist. We're discussing on unique ways it could be compared to others, because you and I have always kind of piggybacked on the idea of the Dina decks and on the whole combos. And we talked about Meren, how could we make this right and make it our own, right? And I'm just like, okay, so no one's playing Grist in our budget format, and we try to do a search, and not many people are doing it at all.
Right.
And it doesn't exist out there, right? And I'm always thought about competitive players were closed off and had bad attitudes, and I was feeling interrogated. Yeah, some of them, have been. I said I was always feeling interrogated every time I played because they wanted to end the game super quick, or why did I play it the way I did, or I didn't even get a chance to introduce myself before before they just said, hey, you're a bad player.
Yeah.
They didn't get a chance to know me. But I've gotten then. Yeah, you know what? And that's what always kind of shunned me away from cEdh a little bit. But then I met people like yourself. I met people like my buddy Tim, Brian, Charlie, Kevin, Charles, Terrence, Marcus, so just a couple names to rattle off.
Yeah.
Dave, Larry, Jamie, Jeff, and Travis. A bunch of people that I wrote down just because I think they deserve a great shout out for just how they changed my opinion on the competitive side. I mean, there's so many other names I'd like to mention, but those are the ones that stand out to me. Playing with these people over the last couple of years, going from someone who just sidebarred and just wanted to play kitchen table to giving it a shot and giving it a fair shake, I think that I've gotten to the point now where I'm okay with it. I think from a budget level, I'm enjoying it more. I don't really foresee me building. I mean, we built that Najeela deck together. Outside of Najeela and Meren, and Grist, I really want to perfect those, right? And so that's going to be my experience, I think, going forward for a little bit, and what my goals are, short-term goals. I want to get those to a level where I can pull them out each time and know exactly what I want to do, and change just a little change here and there, nothing too major. And those are going to be my decks. I don't want to really brew outside of those. I want those to be my decks at the moment, kind of like what I did for my other Meren deck for the longest time and my copy deck. I feel like if you play a deck that you really love and can constantly get along with, and you know what you're doing, mulligans and starting hands and everything to that effect, I feel like that's your baby and you just got to roll with it, right? And
100%.
I think that if you know if you're getting into when you get into a game and you can enjoy it even if you lose because you play the deck and you love, that I think is the key to giving it a fair shake, right? Because if you play something you like, then you're not gonna care because you're just gonna try to plan, check, and adjust for the next time you get into a game.
Yeah, and you'll play the deck more. You'll put more heart into it. And honestly, I don't know. I'm sure you probably haven't been following the cEdh tournaments too much, but now we are actually in a stage now where there is starting to develop a meta. But I mean, it's not like a 60 card format where there's like 5 decks and 2 of them are bad. It's like there's when I say a meta, there's like maybe 12, 13 decks that are pretty common. But still, you go to a cEdh tournament with 40 players, and 30 of the decks that enter are going to be one-ofs, or 25 are going to be one-ofs. But there is starting to develop a bit of a meta, so that's a little bit different. But if you go back even just a few months ago, and you look at the decks that are topping. Like before everybody started saying like, well, Blue Farm's the best deck and Kennon's the second best deck, and which all this stuff changes every month anyway. But before we had this group think about what the best decks were, the decks that won every tournament were absolutely different every single tournament, and it was always almost like virtually every time it was some deck that you've never heard of, or only heard of as a fringe cEdh deck, but you find out that that pilot plays that deck and nothing but that deck. I've seen it happen with Tadiova that wasn't supposed to be a good deck. I've seen it happen with even mono white decks, Heliod, both Heliods, even the kind of worse Heliod. I've seen it happen with a lot of decks over the last couple of years. And Magda was a fringe deck, and then some guy comes out of nowhere and he takes it to I can't remember the name of the event, but he went literally 7-0 to win that event with a deck that everybody that went to that competition that day would have told you was not a tiered deck, you know. So I think it's the people that put the reps in, put the time in. Kind of, I like to call it soul bond. You know, like you soul bond with the deck.
Yeah.
Those are the people that win games. So I want to get into this Grist because this, I mean, at the end of the day, the people that watch this channel are primarily interested in budget content, budget competitive content. So before we get into the deck list, do you have advice for newer Golgari players that are looking to get into Golgari? And let's kind of do this, so that first, and then also advice that you might have to give a casual player who might be thinking about trying to get into competitive, like cEdh, or even like budget competitive cEdh.
Sure, yeah. So for newer Golgari players and newer players in general, I would say don't be afraid to swap those cards that people are saying that they don't think are good creatures. Like we talked about, you get your reps in, you soul bond, right?
Yep.
Do you play what works for you, and you play what works for your wife? One of the cards that you and I talked about many times is a lot of people like playing Allosaurus Shepherd, but you and I like playing Dosan, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, it still counters spells, but it counters all the spells, right?
Yeah.
It's not just green spells that are not being countered, it's everything. So it's almost like that new Vexing Bauble they just came out with, right? That's an artifact that's stopping cards from not paying mana for playing it. So, in my opinion, it's just... Oh, yeah, it's much easier to tutor, you know, Eldritch Evolution. You can Worldly Tutor it to the top deck. I mean, there's just so many ways you can do it. A lot of people don't like, you know, Fiend Artisan, like we talked about before. It's like another birthing pod in your deck. It's another good card. I wouldn't play it maybe in my budget competitive, but I'd play it in my casual Meren deck, for example. But
card.
The advice I'd give to like casual players, I think it is. I think it can be. I think it's a creature. There's a lot more interaction you can do with the creature, right? Especially with us playing Reanimator and Golgari a lot.
Yep.
And the advice I'd give new players trying to get into cEdh or even budget competitive, I'd say focus on the budget competitive like we talked about earlier. Find a way to branch in what you're comfortable with and invest your time and money after you figure out what your style is going to be. If you don't know your style right away and you just want to try to grab every good deck out there, you're never going to go far, I think, in cEdh unless you get your reps in. So starting at a budget level, and you've got plenty of videos for people to check out that can do that, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of decks that they can check out and try for under $100 before they go spend a bunch of money. I mean, I know there's proxies that exist, but people like physical cards, right, in their collection. So I would spend the money first, $100, build your physical cards, get to know them, and then branch into that area that you're going to invest in. Because figure out what your play style is, enjoy every game, even if you lose, and then go back into it knowing what you plan to intend down the road.
Yeah, right on. Well said. And so you think that if you're a casual player or a newer player, casual and or newer player, before you jump into cEdh, do you think taking a kind of foray into like budget competitive would be like a good stepping stone, a good bridge?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I think, like you said before, I think you said it well, that it sort of is like a combination or the crossroads. You know, it's and for me personally, I just like the exact length of the games, the exact power level that we're seeing. I don't like you shuffle your deck, you mulligan for 10 minutes, and then you play one turn and Godo slams Treasonous Ogre and wins before you get your first draw. That's not fun, right? I mean, and that doesn't happen that often in cEdh, honestly. We're in more of like a mid-range hell right now where games do go long and go to time. But in budget, there just are... I've never seen a turn one win. I don't think I've ever seen a turn 2 win. So I think it's like the games are a little bit less complicated than cEdh. The meta is a little bit less complicated than casual. When I play casual, a lot of times I'm just kind of hoping my opponents aren't cheating because I have no fucking idea what they're doing. But with some of the cards being a little bit like there's only so many cards that are going to be best in slot, right? So when you're playing even budget competitive, you get a pretty good idea. Maybe if I see somebody who knows what they're doing, bring out their commander, I can look at the color identity, and I might have a reasonable guess at about half of the cards in their deck. And I think that's the sweet spot for me. But probably let's get on to the list. So what deck are we?
One thing real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I really want to close this off with this thing here too for you is, I thought about this and what would be a good way to really tell players this. And it's kind of like owning and knowing a good deck is like buying a good bed, right? Because you will wake up each day feeling better with both in your mind if you figured out what is best for you because you invested in something great when you go to use it.
Amen.
So that's what I think.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. Hard to disagree with that. So are we going to be, there's kind of a bit of a spoiler on the screen right now. But are we gonna be,
it's been there. It's been staring at us.
Yeah. So we're going to be getting, we're going to be Golgari pilled today.
I think we're going to be pillaging the bog.
All right, let's do it.
Even though it's not in the deck.
Yeah, no. All right, so I've got the controls for the screen here, but I'm going to let you take the lead. So first of all, why don't we talk? Well, do you want to give an overview, or I've got maybe some questions I could ask you about the deck?
I'll go ahead and ask questions right away.
Okay,
I mean, that's fine with me.
I think some of the key things that I think people should know or should want to know about the deck before we really start getting into it is, number one, is this supposed to be a turbo deck? And everything's relative, right? And I would say that turbo in the $100 space is going to be a proactive deck that's looking to win by like on turn 3 by turn 4. Is it more of a mid-range deck? Is it more of a pivot deck? And what is the kind of main win condition, or what are the main win lines?
So I think it's a combination of everything you just said, to be honest, because it depends on the situation you're put in, right? If you have something out there that's going to stop you from winning, then you're going to have to interact. And I think this deck does this very well. I think this deck, what it wants to win with, it wants to win with the Hulk pile. There are 2 Hulk piles there. It also wants to win with the Witherbloom Apprentice and the Chain of Smog combo as well. So there are 3 ways to win, 2 with the Hulk and 1 with Witherbloom. And then obviously then there's our favorite that you've turned me on to, which was that Oran Frostfang is a really aggro finish if we had to.
The snake.
So that's the snake.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think there's a lot of great cards in this deck to almost make it toolboxy too.
Yeah.
I think that between the mid range, between the turbo, and I think toolboxy, I think this really is the pure definition of that. It's a reanimator deck. It's it's a Hulk deck like we talked about. It's a Witherbloom Chain of Smog deck. It's a Golgari fun. It's everything wrapped up with a black and green ball.
Yeah. So I would agree. I would say that it is. It's not exactly a mid-range deck. I think it slants. It leans a little bit turbo, but it has like mid-range capacity. It has like one of the hallmarks of a good mid-range deck is card quality. And even though you do have to play a certain number of dead cards, like dead draws, to get a Protean Hulk package to work, Golgari, especially since all these reprints and new cards that have come out for the especially like Hulk decks, Golgari has like some of the highest card quality at $100 that's even imaginable. I just can't believe all the cards. You get to play Reanimate, you get to play like legit Reanimate. But I wanted to ask too, so there's a lot of different Golgari commanders. There's even a lot of different Golgari commanders that lean towards Protean Hulk. why do you play Grist? Like, what does Grist do for you? Why would you why Grist?
So Grist is nice because not only its casting cost is low, and it's also a creature in the command zone and in the graveyard. So you could reanimate Grist from the graveyard. You can mill yourself to get some of your key pieces, some tutors into the graveyard. You can mill even Hulk to the graveyard, right? And then hope you get a tutor or something to like that affected, or reanimate to get pieces you need to get Hulk back from the graveyard. It's another way to sack Hulk too. You can sacrifice the Hulk with Grist, and you can blow up a creature, a planeswalker. We're not seeing too many planeswalkers in budget. I mean, you have our buddy Kevin's Murder Bird combo with the red planeswalker you could blow up by sacrificing a creature. Or, and what's nice is you can, Narset, you can sacrifice the tokens you're generating by milling to blow up things. So there's value in Grist. It can give you a fifth win con if you really, really wanted to. If you're really deep in a game and you're milling completely, to just shoot the table with his bottom ability. I have not gotten that far. I don't foresee me ever getting that far in a game that we play, but it's there. I mean, it's just you never know. It's just there's so many things that Grist has that I believe, like we've talked about before, it might be the best Hulk commander.
Yeah, you know what? I would not have thought that when we started this little project, but I think I'm leaning in that direction now. In fact, I gun to head right now, if somebody said, you have to build the best even cEdh Hulk deck, cEdh Hulk deck in Golgari for sure. There's no doubt in my mind I would go with Grist 1,000%. And I think you said it well. Like, just the same way that it's kind of hard to pin down the deck and say it's a this deck or a that deck, Grist is kind of the same way. It's removal in the command zone. It can mill you. But I think the two main things is it's removal in the command zone, and it's a way in the command zone to sacrifice your Hulk. And that matters a lot. It's like when you're playing a deck that's a Hulk deck that doesn't have a sacrifice outlet in the command zone, you have to play that many more card slots. You have to dedicate that many more slots to just having a way to kill your own Hulk. And Grist, I don't know, probably frees up like 8 slots that you can play really good interaction or backup combos instead. So I think that's what's cool about Grist. And you want to give us kind of a rundown on what the Protean Hulk combo is, or what your version of it is in this deck?
Sure. So in this deck, there are two outlets, like I said, to really finish the game. The first outlet being Malaria. You have your Blood Artist, or I guess everyone's favorite, and I'm trying to see because I'm not used to this view. Your Disciple of the Vault, and then you got your a Lesser Manticore, right? So Malaria said creatures can't get the neg-1/neg-1s. Lesser Manticore says, it's got persist, so if it dies, it comes back with the neg-1, or a counter on it. If it comes with like a neg-1/neg-1 counter if it didn't have a counter on it. So you literally ignore that with Malaria, and it just keeps coming back, and you just keep shooting the table with it dying over and over again because you have Disciple of the Vault, right? So it's just infinite damage. Disciple of the Vault says whenever an artifact is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, your opponent loses 1 life. Lesser Manticore, is an artifact, so that being a loop, that's number 1. Number 2 is your Activated Sleeper. Activated Sleeper and Cavalier.
Forgot about Viscerous here.
Yeah, Viscerous here is the one that's going to be sacrificing Lesser Manticore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly. Activated Sleeper and Cavalier of Night. This is a combo piece that a buddy of mine on a server, probably one of the highest viewed Meren decks out there, him and I were talking about this combo once. I didn't understand it at first, but then I realized how good it truly is. So what you do is you sack the Hulk, and you grab Activated Sleeper and Cavalier of Night, right? And then you could grab Blood Artist. Hopefully Blood Artist is already out, but you can sacrifice them with the combo piece like Viscera Seer, where you sacrifice Activated Sleeper, he dies, Cavalier comes back, or you bring out Cavalier, you do the same thing, you sack a creature, it being Activated Sleeper being the Hulk, so it dies, and it keeps coming back and forth.
Yeah, that's a confusing one. It's a hard one to get your head around, but after about the 6th time I read the primer, I started to kind of get it. Yeah, it's and I think actually Cavalier of Night in cEdh might look something like a dead card, but budget competitive is a lot more creature based, and I think it's kind of nice just to have like a 4 or 5 lifelink kind of a brick wall, like the more aggro decks that are literally trying to either attack you for damage or at least for value.
Yeah.
Okay, and then sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if I need to go into more explanation for you, for the viewers, just so it's easier to understand, I can do that real quick. I can read you my exact primer for that if you'd like me to. Just so it's easier and kind of gives you a step-by-step here. Because I just don't want to confuse anyone, per se, right? So I don't know if we have it on there. We should have it on there. If it's not on there, I have it right here. MH3, I've been doing a lot of like updates with my decks with MH3 coming out recently. So there's been a lot of changes that I've done recently. But we can either move on or we can keep talking about it. It's not a big deal.
The basic idea
I think
is that we are we using the Protean Hulk to get to the Cavalier combo or no?
Yes.
Okay.
We are. I'm just trying to pull up my list to read you step by step, so it's easier for the viewer, your viewers to understand the combo line here.
Oh, I think I get it. So we're gonna basically have to do like a double Hulk situation. We're gonna use Activated Sleeper to turn into another Hulk, sack that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Activated Sleeper, it enters as the Hulk, right? And you grab a combo piece. So if you see Activated Sleeper, he becomes the Hulk, and then the Hulk went to the bin, right? So you're going to enter, you should already have a sack outlet out there because that's how you get rid of Hulk. Activated Sleeper, then you sacrifice and it becomes Cavalier of Night, which you grab from your deck as the Hulk. And you grab, just for that fun, you could grab Arbor Elf, Elvish Mystic, something that's a 1-drop. Or Sylvan Safekeeper, for example. I'd probably grab that just to protect your guy. So you can protect your guy. You can constantly sit there with, you should have Blood Artist out if you don't already. The first Hulk comp thing should have probably grabbed Blood Artist with your Activated Sleeper, so you're constantly pinging your opponents. It's the most confusing line, which is why I kind of had to double explain it to you, because even to this day, I know you and I talked about it before, it's hard to really read through the lines on that guy. But at the end of the day, it's like another Malaria combo, just a kind of more advanced step level. Yeah. But now with Sylvan Safekeeper, we have a better 1-drop target to really grab, and we can infinitely keep sacking with Cavalier of Night and just Blood Artisting someone to the endless realm there till they're dead. So that's our Hulk lines, right? That's I like the Warren Soul Trader combo with the Forsaken Miner that just came out with Blood Artist, but that's still expensive and doesn't fit our budget yet. But down the road, I can foresee that replacing Activated Sleeper and Cavalier, so we're not reading a Webster's dictionary to explain the combo to all our viewers.
Yeah, seriously. Plus, it's just well, I guess it's kind of off topic, but I think it's an even better piece in Meren because it actually has usefulness inside the Meren deck.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what are we doing in terms of interaction? Like, how are we not losing the game? What are some of our key pieces here?
So the obvious answer is we want to protect our planeswalkers. So we want to definitely, because that's going to be one of our key pieces of our sack outlets there. We want to definitely throw some insects out there early game. Get him out as fast as we can to mill. Get some insects out there to get us some blockers so we're not dying as quick. We want to try to play cards like Autumn's Veil and Imp's Mischief to really protect some of our key combo pieces. And we want to how we're not dying another way would be we got a lot of removal in our deck, right? We got a lot of recursion from putting cards back in our hand with like Reclaim and Regrowth. So we're not dying because we're trying to grab those pieces that are protecting us and giving us that advantage. Unearth is a great card in the deck because it gets us Grist back from if someone tries to kill Grist. It gets rid of our main sack outlet, right? Unearth is great. I would say to protect yourself, you want to be faster than the table. So you got plenty of tutors in the deck. So you got like Buried Alive, which is now 45 cents because of Modern Horizons 3. So and then Thunder Junction, Outlaws of Thunder Junction brought us Reanimate cheaper. It brought us Abrupt Decay cheaper. It brought us a handful of cards. I mean, Modern Horizons 3, for example, we talked about it earlier, Sylvan Safekeeper. Went from a $20 card down to a $2 card.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great card, too. Do you play the land in here? Oh, no, this isn't Meren. What am I thinking? I was thinking of the Arbor thing. Dryad Arbor with Meren and Sylvan Safekeeper is cool. Okay, and so we've got a lot of tutors. We've got tons of interaction, like really good interaction. Abrupt Decay at 73 cents, crazy. And there's some pieces too that I think people generally are sleeping on, like Vendetta, Tragic Slip. I think these are cards that should see more play even in cEdh. I think. Let me see our time here. Autumn's Veil, I wish they'd reprint the better Veil. And what was the other one? Imp's Mischief is another one that got a much needed reprint. This is one of my favorite cards, period. Another one I think doesn't see enough play even in budgetless. I just wanted to kind of side note here. The deck that I'm working on right now for cEdh, this is the one that I think this is going to be like my deck moving forward, is the new Rakdos. And it's a Rakdos deck, but it's unlike any other Rakdos deck you're likely to see. We're not playing Underworld Breach, for instance, but it is using that combo you were talking about, that the new one that came out, where you've got the Forsaken, what's it called? Forsaken something.
Miner?
Yeah, Forsaken Miner, and then the, what the hell is the other one? The Sack Outlet.
That's the Warren Soul Trader.
Yeah, Warren Soul Trader. So that Warren Soul Trader with the Forsaken Miner, just a brief little side tangent here. So with Rakdos the Muscle, it says that you can, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, or a creature, you sacrifice a creature, you can exile cards equal to its converted mana cost off the top of your deck or an opponent's deck, and you can play those until end of turn. So when you get the Soul Trader and the Forsaken Miner going together, or since the Soul Trader just happens to be a zombie, you can use Gravecrawler to do the same thing. So let's say you've got your Gravecrawler and your Warren Soul Trader. You can just continue to sack it and recast it and sack it and recast it to dig through your deck at 1 life point. So it's like a build your own Yawgmoth's bargain, right? So for 1 life point, you just keep drawing cards. But as soon as you get then to the altar, Ashnod's altar, or the Phyrexian altar, right? The one that makes colored mana. Phyrexian altar. So you kind of use the Warren Soul Trader to get yourself to a tutor or to the altar, and then once you're sacrificing the Forsaken Miner, and you're exiling cards off the top of your opponent's library, that is considered committing a crime. And so you can continually do that, and you mill all of your opponents out. That's the main win condition of the deck. It's freaking sweet. But it kind of, I think you'd like it. It kind of reminds me of, it's got sort of a Rakdos meets Golgari vibe going. So what?
That's awesome.
What have you run into any decks that you found that are like particularly difficult matchups for you?
I've seen a few. I'd say definitely that Stella deck has a run for its money against me. Seeing budget Stella hit the table, I don't have counter spells in my deck, so being against a Stella deck really hurts.
Yeah.
But I feel like killing Stella is the answer in that situation before she can go off.
You've got plenty of ways to do it.
Kevin's Murder Bird deck that can get out of hand pretty quick, especially with the ability to attack and kill Grist.
Yeah.
That cripples me sometimes. Even if it's not a large bird, it's a bird that's gonna definitely do some work and kill Grist, right? And I find that, for example, your Malcolm Kedis deck sometimes has the ability to do direct damage to things, and I often find you blowing up Grist too. So I can say that those decks have been really a big challenge for me. I know that, for example, the owner of ATG, Travis, has that Brago deck. That's just like not Brago, but Kess. Kess kind of doing some similar shenanigans like Stella's doing. I find blue is pretty challenging in any decks that have combat, right? Because I'm not trying to flood the board with creatures. I'm trying to just combo off and get my combo going, and I think that any decks that are going to run spells that I got to wonder if I should cast this or not is going to be the key. And that's why I think Autumn's Veil comes in handy against decks like that. But it's like, do I tutor for my combo pieces or do I tutor for Autumn's Veil?
Yeah.
And that's the situations I run into. And then with Kevin's deck, I got to tutor for a kill spell. Yeah. At your deck, I gotta make sure I do the same thing. I gotta blow up some creatures on your board so you don't win your following turn with some of your key pieces. So I would say decks that have a lot of interaction or have the ability to blow up or stop my things. I won't say that's every deck because that's not every deck, right? But I will say that those are the couple decks that I've ran into that have given me a run for my money. Especially Savala, I think, is really difficult to go against too.
Yeah, Savala.
Just because the big creatures are in that deck.
Now that Savala deck that Kevin runs is it's not a $100 budget deck for one thing. So I'd be interested to see how this deck fares against kind of more turbo-y, like actual $100 builds, like actual $100 Savala, $100 Marwyn, some of the faster decks. Even the one that I put the video up on today is kind of a turn 4 deck most of the time. What's the little red dwarf called?
Magda,
yeah. Have there been any? Tell me if there's any cards in the deck that you either undervalued or overvalued. Like, for instance, you said that Orin Frostfang ended up actually being better than you thought. Were there any other cards that either let you down a little bit, that are maybe on the chopping block, or you wish you could find replacements for, or anything that has been kind of like an overachiever?
I would say, there's two I can think of off the top of my head, maybe three. So the first being Final Parting. I like Final Parting, but I have a rule in cEdh that if I'm not playing cards that are going to generate a bunch of mana in my deck, I don't like playing cards that are over 4 mana CMC. Okay. I like to keep everything under that. I think Final Parting is, you better win if you play that card, or you're behind a turn or two. I found it that when I played it once, I put Witherbloom Apprentice in the graveyard and I put Chain of Smog in my hand because I knew that I could reanimate the Witherbloom Apprentice or get a card that's going to allow me to do that, and then someone exiled it, right?
Yeah.
So it really set me back from a win count. I think there are better cards out there. I think another one is Natural State. It's a 1-drop blow up, artifacts and enchantments and such. But I I just don't see enough threatening cards in this budget format with Natural State. I could see it better in like, and this sounds bad because you don't really ever see it, but regular cEdh, I can see Natural State being an all-star because you got all your cheap rocks and such. But I just don't. I don't really feel the vibe on Natural State as much.
So I would say there was a time when Natural State was kind of a cEdh. I don't know if all-star, but definitely it was played a lot more. But it's just been power crept out with like Seiju and Force of Vigor, mainly those two. And Nature's Claim's probably better than Natural State too. But yeah, I get that.
Undervalued that actually became pretty stinking good. I'd say Nuclear Fallout.
Okay.
Nuclear Fallout. It came from the Fallout decks. I want to replace it eventually here soon with Toxic Deluge since it's dropped in price. But this is kind of like Grist Toxic Deluge, right? Because it gives people rad counters. I know we've talked about before how it might be good, it might be bad because it might be giving people stuff in their graveyard. But if I'm playing against decks that don't have a lot of recursion from their graveyard, or they're not running, the ability to bring cards back from their graveyard, I just don't. I can't see that it's a bad card in that sense. I've ran into a lot of games where, for example, budget. Let's say one of Charles's budget decks, and getting rid of all of his creatures he built up and putting a bunch of his key pieces in the graveyard with the rad counters really helped, not slow the game down, but it actually saved me because Kevin and him would have had more cards the following turn, but because I played and I had those rad counters, I blew up the board, saved me a few turns, and got rid of both of some of their key pieces, or something to blow up, Grist, for example. Because what's cool about Nuclear Fallout is it doesn't hit Grist. It hits creatures out, but Grist isn't a creature. Right. So, Toxic Deluge does the same thing, but hey, I'm getting value because I'm throwing things in the graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, I think
non-land permanent.
If you can break parity on the kind of, I would say, benefit of having cards milled into your graveyard, if you're breaking parity on that part of this card, I think it's really good. When I first looked at this card, I thought this is just way too good, and I honestly thought that this might be a contender for like the best black board wipe. And I think the only thing that keeps it down a little bit is the fact that, like in cEdh especially, there are so many decks that are playing Underworld Breach combos, and even like Razakath and kind of Reanimator strategies, Hulk strategies. But in budget in specific, and especially when you're playing a graveyard-based strategy yourself, I think this card is the truth. I mean, even at just 3 mana, it's like -2/-2 to everything. You go to 2 mana, and it basically wipes the board like 2x = 2. And if you're actually getting benefit off of the cards that are getting milled, I think it's great. So I want to ask you now. I have a I like Final Parting. I get what you're saying. It's a lot of mana, and when it doesn't pan out for you, and sometimes it doesn't, it is a blowout, right? It can be a beating. Like if you go, Dark Ritual into Final Parting, get your pieces, and get counterspelled when you go to reanimate your thing. Yeah, you lost a lot of tempo there. I do like having the kind of 1-card combos in the deck, like a card that can assemble, both halves of the combo. But the other one that I am just wondering how you feel about it. I've seen it played a lot. I've played a deck that most versions of the deck, I used to play Corvold and cEdh, and most versions played this combo. I've been off of it. I've seen people get blown out. I've not seen it do many good things, but I haven't played it very much myself, if at all, actually. What are your thoughts and feelings? How have you felt about the Witherbloom Apprentice and Chain of Smog?
So I like the cards. It is definitely something I try to win with, but I feel like people know it's coming. I think they will hold counter spells for it, more or less. I think that seeing it go off and win the game is rarer than you actually winning the game with it. Um, because, or not winning the game with it, because I think that people have learned that if you have a green and black deck, you have Chainer Smog, you have Witherbloom, or you have Professor Onyx. You know, it's just people expect it,
Mm-hmm.
so they're always going to probably, if they're playing blue, they're going to hold a counterspell against it, right? I think it's kind of like a song on the radio that's played and played and played and played and played again over and over and over again. I feel like I love the combo, but I just feel like you have to play it if you're playing black and green. But I just feel it's overplayed to the fact that I hope eventually they print two card combos that could replace that, because I might consider swapping.
Yeah, that's what I think too. It's kind
So
of in a pure Golgari list. It's sort of what do you call it? Like something you kind of have to play, but you wish you didn't. And in cEdh, I look at it as almost having to have a 3-card combo, and you don't really play 3-card combos in cEdh. But I think when you're playing Wither Chain in cEdh, it's like Dosan or one of the Veils or Bust, right? Like I've seen the problem isn't just that it gets expected. I mean, people do expect it, but it's not just that it gets stopped. The problem is that when it gets stopped, you're not just blown out by, say, the 4 mana you invested. You just dumped your hand. I mean, usually that's like game over for you when it doesn't succeed, right? That's my problem with it.
right.
But yeah, I wondered if you'd had better results than what I've seen. I've seen so many people get blown out by it. But yeah, it's a necessary evil. I mean, I agree. I hope that at some point we have like a nice, efficient A+B for Golgari. And until then, I guess we'll try to keep our Veils online, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
That's
we
right.
are approaching the point where, an hour and 2. Find when you put the videos up in too long a form, sometimes they get passed by. So why don't we try to wrap up here? I guess just final thoughts on maybe your what you thought about cEdh, how you felt about it, what you like best between budget or pure cEdh, and just kind of like the deck Grist. How have you just final thoughts? Maybe you could put a bow on the end of this thing.
So I think this deck is a great deck for anyone who is branching out of, higher power casual commander, or trying to make a cEdh deck. I think this is definitely the deck you want to start with. I think honestly, it's moving to S tier in your format. The $100. I think this is definitely a staple. If you had starter decks, structure decks at the store, and you had 4 structure decks that you could put out, I think this would be one of them, so they could really learn the format. I think it's got a really high win rate. I think that you sit down, you play this, you're public enemy number
Yep.
1, but you're also having a great time, and there's just you do a starting hands on this, you're going to have so many cards that interact with, even if it's not your win con, you're going to have so many cards that are going to interact with your board state that it's going to keep you in the game. It's going to keep you interactive. I think it's definitely gives any players, new players, or people trying to break into the format a run for their money. I think this is definitely the deck that could place really well in a tournament.
Yeah. So in case people, I think a lot of people that watch the channel are more coming from a casual perspective. What would your thoughts or advice, or if somebody said, yeah, I'm playing casual commander in a casual commander group, and I'm thinking about building this deck and taking it to a casual pod. What do you think about that?
I think they could.
You think?
I think you got to read the table, right? Um, I think if you know what people are doing, and I mean, this deck wants to win on turn three to four. And it can.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to. Um, I've played it at a casual speed before, where I focused more around Frostfang, and yeah, I had my Hulk pieces, but it was kind of funny because I used the Hulk to grab like a bunch of mana dorks, and like for example, our Fauna Shaman, because that's our survival of the fittest in the deck, right? So I was able to throw things in the bin that it could really benefit Frostfang, and I was able to win with Frostfang and Blood Artist combos.
Okay.
So
So you
it
kind of
it could definitely do that if you don't do the main win cons.
okay. So
But if you do the main win cons,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say so. It sounds like you're saying like if you take it to just an actual strictly casual pod where players maybe don't play that much interaction, they're not doing fast combo or control, that you kind of have to play with the gloves on if you're gonna play the deck.
Yeah, gloves on. If you're playing a higher powered pod where they are playing infinites, I'd say go for it all day long.
Yep, and that's what the channel is about, really. This is what I wanted to start the channel and kind of make it about. I know a lot of people are playing against decks that are just way over their budget, way over their power level, but still in the like casual sphere. People have their like $500 goblins, $500 vampires, $500 slivers, and I think if you're looking like you just don't have the budget to keep up with the kind of money piles at the LGS, I think this is a really good deck to take and kind of make a statement and say like, look guys, like I don't have the wallet, but I've got Grist and a couple of Hulk piles, But I would just say when I first started playing at the LGS, I came from just playing mostly more competitive and on spell table, and then I went to the LGS and I took my $100 kind of competitive Malcolm Caddis deck to the LGS at RIW, in fact, and people were not happy. So I would just warn that if you're playing against strict casual decks, just be a little bit careful with this, because this thing will fucking dead the table on turn 3 some of the time. If your opponents don't have interaction, and if you get comfortable with the lines and you know how to mulligan this deck, it will make everybody dead by turn 4. So, well, right on. I appreciate you giving your time and chatting with me tonight. But
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I think we're probably gonna stop it there. So until next time, nerds. Word to your mothers and your fathers: don't leave the fathers out. Peace. And what are some sign-off sayings? I always try to throw in like a bunch of them. I kind of butcher them up. May the force be with you.
I always tried to end with the best part of Magic is not always winning on the battlefield, but the friends we make when we leave the battlefield.
Yep, it's about the gathering. Namaste, homies. Until next time.